Okay, let's get started with our extinction segment. Different subjects there that we cover. And here's the first one. First, there's an article that came out saying alien life in universe. Scientists say finding it is only a matter of time. And they talk about these planets that they've seen out there that are in the Goldilocks zone. And you can see there the picture I had in my website where I show that, if a planet is too far away from the sun or too close, it probably will not have life. It's got to be kind of like just right. And these people are talking about that, the fact that it's got to be in the Goldilocks zone. It's got to be maybe in the ecliptic, or maybe it's got to have a magnetic field. It's got to have an atmosphere, right? So and it's got to be a certain size. If it's too big, maybe it's got too much gravity. If it's too little, maybe it's got too little gravity for life to develop. Well, you have all these different parameters, and it's got to be kind of like just right. And so the issue is that finding a planet like that is like finding a needle in a haystack, And that's one issue. The other issue is that's, you can say, the space aspect of it. How about the time aspect of it? You got to get it just right. Life develops, it lasts a few million years, and then life disappears. And right now we've been with life on Earth maybe rounding off 500 million years. And that's kind of like a drop of water in the ocean. Eternity. The universe has been around forever, and so 500 million years is nothing. And what do I mean by that? I mean that in order to see at least intelligent life like the level of humans, not only do we have to have all the Goldilocks conditions, but there's an added feature, and that is that they have to be at the same time as us. They have to be developing now, so that when we see them, we see them there. Obviously, there you got the velocity of light there, but what I'm saying, it's got to be within a certain range of time, because when we're gone, and that's what this channel's about, we're saying that we're going to be gone very soon. We only had maybe 200 years of magnetism, electricity, to develop the technology to be able to listen in or see, a planet that's got life in it of some kind, let alone intelligent life. But it's got to be within a certain window of time. They've got to be in the same 200 years. And what is 200 years? 200 years ain't nothing. There's nothing there. It's very little time from a universal point of view. Okay, so it's not only an issue of space, of distance, it's also an issue of time. Okay, fellow says, asks a question or says, extinction is the opposite of exist. Without location, you are extinct, correct? No, extinction is not the opposite of exist. Okay, exist is an object that has location. Extinction has to do with a species. You don't say that an individual human became extinct. We say he died, not that he became extinct. I mean, you can use poetry if you want there, but the issue is that extinction refers to species. And a species is not a thing. Okay, species is a concept. Talks about many individuals. Species are like talking about forest, a bunch of trees, or children, a bunch of kids. Okay, so species is not a thing. Okay, and so when we say a species went extinct, or an order, an entire order or family of species went extinct, what are we saying? We're saying that you're talking about this species, or this group of species, is no longer around. Does that mean they don't exist? They didn't exist to begin with, because species is a concept. We can't talk in physics about concepts existing. Okay. Okay. So much for that one. I hope everybody can hear me fine. Let me know otherwise. I'm always worried about that. Sometimes, something happens with the video or the sound, and I keep ranting and don't realize it. Okay, so here's another fellow says, if all money disappeared, we would just create some new form of money. After all, that is what we have done in the past. How did mankind survive before we had commerce and money? Um, well, the problem is that today we depend on money to produce food. That's the issue. And we didn't need that in the days that we were hunter gatherers. We didn't need money at all. So we didn't need it because money was not used as a medium of exchange to obtain food. Today it is a medium of exchange. If money disappears, we can't say, well, we're going to create another money. We're not going to replace brown money with green money or vice versa. This is not an issue of changing money and saying, if money disappears, we just create a new one. It won't give us time to create a new one because by that time, the whole planet goes to a standstill. You don't go to zero in green money and say, okay, now we're going to start with brown money. Money we can create. We can create all kinds of money. In fact, I think we've created the last kind of money, which is these bitcoins, right? The what do you call it? The virtual coins, right? That's probably the last type of money we'll ever create, which is an internet money, which is more or less where the checking accounts also went. We used to do checks by paper. Now the checks are done through the internet. So there's relatively little, bills going around compared to the amount of money that is in total circulation. But the point here is once that money disappears, what do we use it for? The only reason we use money is to buy food. There's no other reason. It's not that we use it to buy, houses and cars and all that, because that eventually gets translated again into food. The person who gets a salary, the person who runs a company, eventually need to pay for food for one more day in order to be alive one more day. So all we're doing with all these services and manufacturing, all this stuff that we create, is exchange it for food so we can live one more day. That's it. So we need money because of that. Because without money, we can't eat. Someone produces the food also because of money and distributes it because of money. Without money, the world doesn't run. I'm sorry to tell you. Okay, fellow says, along the same line, this fellow says, Bill should really stick to physics. His complete ignorance of biology is leading him to confusion. Economics has nothing to do with biology. One of his most bizarre premises is that humans are too inbred to survive when there are 8 billion souls on the planet. Even if the global agriculture system collapsed tomorrow, there would still be literally billions of humans all over the planet pumping out babies like there's no tomorrow. My, this fellow is so out of it. He doesn't know the first thing about anything. Sure, there could be a big population crash, but humans are going nowhere unless there's some truly devastating event for practical purposes destroys the earth. And he goes in there talking about, the catastrophes. Everybody thinks of catastrophe. That's the only thing that can kill man. Some boulder from the outside, an asteroid, or a meteorite or whatever hits the earth, or some volcanic activity, or maybe a supernova nearby just blows us off. Blows us out of the solar system. So all these people are talking about these things. About catastrophes. So the issue is, the global population will not. What did he say? How did he say? He says we'll be pumping out babies like there's no tomorrow. We're not doing it today. We're not pumping out babies. Okay, this fellow doesn't. He has no idea whatsoever what's going on out there. What we have out there, okay, is that we're not making babies anymore. Okay, I don't know if you noticed, but the population of Earth is dwindling. In other words, the growth rate is dwindling. We're approaching zero population growth, known as ZPG. Okay, and we've been doing that at least since 1963, the last time we had a decent rate. Since then, our rate has come down to 1, and we're going down to 0. Okay, that's the growth rate. And so, yeah, we're not pumping out babies. And the reason is very clear. We moved to the cities. We have high density. You cannot have babies in an apartment. You can't have 10 babies in an apartment, okay, like we used to in the farms. So we're not having babies. In fact, women don't want to have babies today, a lot of them, because they don't want to go through the animal aspect of it, you're putting out something between their legs, They think that's kind of animal behavior. And I think a lot of the women are really afraid to have babies because they realize they're going to be, first, they're going to be bloated for 9 months. It's like being sick for 9 months on purpose. And then they're going to have to go through the, pushing. Yeah. And, these are not the same women that we had in the old days. In the old days, women thought it was just natural and they would do it and they wanted to have families. That's changed completely, especially with the city women. And not to mention the men. Many of the men don't want to have babies either because they don't want the responsibility or they see it as an anchor, it's just more money that comes out of their pocket, etc. They want to enjoy life and they say, hey, you're going to enjoy life probably better without a kid than with one. Not everybody agrees, but there are a lot of people who think that way. And so we're not having babies. So that's one issue. The other one is that, if agriculture comes down to 0, we're all dead. We need agriculture. But the problem is that in the old days, things would grow and we would just pick them. We were hunter-gatherers, right? At some point, we became more gatherers than hunters. And we can call that farming. We went into the farming era. But then we began trade at some point, probably in the Neolithic. We began to trade and say, look, I'm going to give you a chair for your corn. And we began to trade. First, the swapping. But today we depend on this thing called money. And again, we need the money to create this money to exchange and get food. Eventually, the whole issue is getting food. But what's the issue here? The issue is that money is what you give value to. Money has no intrinsic value. Money is just a paper or a number on a computer. That's all it is. And so they're giving you this thing and you're saying, oh, I'm going to take it. Well, why are you taking it? Well, because you give it value. And as long as we all believe in this religion called money, in God we trust, then we have money. Tomorrow we all lose faith in God, in money, and suddenly, money disappears. You have it in your hand, you have the dollar bill, or you have a number in a computer, but it's worthless because nobody will accept it, right? And it's like we all suddenly wake up, woke, and suddenly we realize that it has no intrinsic value. It was just a number in a computer. It was just a piece of paper with some ink on it. That's all it was. Or gold. Gold's a rock. You accept the rock and you say, okay, I'll accept that rock. Okay, today we accept it. But if no one accepts your rock again, from you to them, then you will not accept it from whoever tries to give it to you. So you got to think in those terms. Money is whatever's in your head. There is no such thing as money out there other than, the paper, the inked paper or the gold. But money is really the value you give to that thing because you can resell it. You can sell it to someone else or exchange it with someone else. That's the only reason we accept it. Okay, another fellow says, when you die, your soul changes location. Your soul changes location. Therefore, souls are physical objects. Oh, I see. Because he thinks that souls move. Therefore, it has location. It can move. Therefore, it's a physical object. That's his train of thought, right? Life is movement caused by the physical interaction between soul and body. And no, I hate to tell this fellow, but soul is thinking. It's conscience. It's mind. It's a concept. All those are concepts. In fact, it's worse than concept. It's a dynamic concept. Thinking is a verb. Okay? So, no, don't confuse it with a noun, which is what you think soul is. So there we have it. Objects that which moves, that's what he thinks it is. Change in location. And no, what is it? Soul does not have location. The mind, the brain has location, not the soul. The soul is created up there. Some think it's in the heart, but no, it's up here in your brain. Okay, objects that which has shape, and soul is not a noun; it's a verb. Okay, so it's in its brain that does the thinking. Okay, so yeah, some people still have these remnants of religion, of old time religion, traditional religions, and they believe in all these words that were created by our ignorant forefathers way back when, thousands of years ago. And we still believe, a lot of people still have these beliefs and these erroneous way of thinking. They think that there are spirits out there, souls, and that they go to heaven, they move around and maybe move the curtain. Okay, fellow says, I disagree with picking sides because I told him the other day, you should pick sides in all these wars that are going on. And that's my recommendation to you. My experience, I got involved in a lot of that stuff, and what I got out of it is that never go into politics again. Don't get involved with politics. But fellow says, yeah, you should pick a side. If you are a mercenary from PNC Private Military Corporation, which are the future of war and have been like this since the 80s, I don't see why not. If you are skilled at violence and want to live dangerously, that's a good capitalist venture to make a lot of money from. It talks about this. Well, but that's not what I was referring to. I'm saying, we're not talking about a job and choosing sides because it's convenient for you. I'm saying don't you choose sides because you have your heart on the side of, for example, Hamas or Israel, or because you have your heart on the side of Ukraine or Russia. That's what I'm talking about. There's a good way to solve all the problems in the universe. On Earth, okay? All the wars, all the bad news you have out there, there's a very, very easy way to solve them all. And that is turn off your TV. And you'll solve all the problems in the world, believe me. Okay? And so that's what I'm referring to, not the fact that you go as a mercenary. Of course, if you go to a mercenary, it's not that you chose a side because of your heart. You chose it because of your pocket. Okay, and that's something else. It's not what I was referring to. Okay, another fellow says, I like this one. There are no gay animals whatsoever. These are just cases of mistaken identity. Okay, animals aren't very smart, and they often get confused by all these shapes they're looking at. That's why turtles will try to mate with shoes. Well, I can tell you, this fellow simply doesn't know. I mean, he doesn't realize what's out there. They've taken sheep, okay, male sheep, and they figured out that about 10% of them are homosexual. And the way they figure out that this is the case is they have a stall full of sheep, and one of them is a male, all the others are female. And remember, it's not only shape, it's smell, okay? And so when the females are in heat, the males smell it, and all he sees is butts. And this guy will go in there, smell them, and he'll get to the guy and mount him. So, and you can see there the lion, he's having fun. No, it's not a mistaken identity. They are homosexual, okay? And the question is why? And I'm telling you why. They're homosexual because homosexuality, as well as autism that we see today, my argument is that it's got lots to do with genetic diversity. And we've lost our genetic diversity over the centuries because we've been inbreeding, and that leads to some of these problems, okay, that we see today, more today than in the past. But it happens with animals as well. They've been inbreeding. Lions have been inbreeding for a long time. We've been forcing cows and sheep and all our domesticated animals, chickens and so on, to inbreed. And we get the best stud. We want the best horse to run at the races, etc. So and not only with animals, we do it with plants as well. You know, grapes, we don't grow them with seed anymore. It's been a long time since I don't think anybody grows them with seed. You take a piece of a branch, of another, is it uh, grapevine or whatever, and you take it and you plant it, and you have now a new grapevine. So yeah, we inbreed all these things and doing what is called as artificial selection, and I don't think that's good for us in the long term. Okay, but fortunately, there's got to be no, or unfortunately, there's got to be no long term. We're due for extinction quite soon, and so I guess it doesn't matter anyways. Okay, and final issue, a fellow says, if you abuse animals like Calhoun did, their brains will not develop normally. You can't release them into the wild because the patterns in their brains will be all messed up. Well, the first thing I want to advise you is not to say what you said in the first sentence there, abuse animals, because that means you're talking about politics right off the bat, not science, okay? It means you got a gripe against Calhoun because he put these mice under, very extreme conditions. Okay, so you don't have to get involved with that part of it. Now it says you can't release them into the wild because patterns in their brains will be all messed up. Yeah, no kidding. That was his experiment. His experiment was that something happened to the mice, and the question is how much of it had to do with nature, how much with nurture. Nature, very simple. You had founder's effect. You have their great grandparents. I guess it was more than it was great 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 grandparents, maybe, right? They were normal mice. Normal meaning, they were borrowed mice from some lab. Okay, they already had a lot of maybe their genetics was very similar. They should have done a genetic study before they borrowed the mice. But once they put the mice together, those were still normal mice because they were like from the wild. They still thought about hunting and mating and doing all these things. But all that disappeared, with the next few generations, where we went from 8 mice, 4 couples, to 2,200 mice, all descended from those same 8 mice. And now you're talking about, not only environment, nurture, right? But you're talking about nature as well, because, all those mice have the same DNA, same chromosomes or whatever, coming from the original mice. And so the question is how much of that played a part in these animals eventually, going nuts. And they did go bad because, like Calhoun says, they stopped being mice. It was so bad that he had to terminate. It was just disgusting to see what was happening there, and he just terminated the experiment before it got to the extinction phase. But he ended up with, fewer mice because, the population dropped drastically. I think he ended up like 30 or 40 mice. In fact, there's a study about the St. Matthews Island, about the deer. And something similar happened there in the 50s and 60s where they left some deer on St. Matthews Island, and these deer multiplied, and they had nowhere to go because they were on this island. And eventually, when they went many years later, and they counted, there were lots of deer all over the place. Then they went another maybe 10 years later, and they only had like 25 deer on the island. You can look up the St. Matthews Island issue. And there was only one male. He was kind of weak. He was kind of dying also. And 24 females. I mean, you would say that's paradise. No, not true. That was the end of those deer. It was the end of the deer. And so look it up.